I am now going to call to order this August 22nd, 2022 workshop session of the Medfield School Committee, beginning with a roll call. So Tim Knight.
Here.
Thank you. And Michelle Kirkby.
Michelle Kirkby here.
Thanks. Anna Mae.
Here.
Anna Mae Sheo-Brook is here, and Jessica Riley is here. Great. So this meeting is going to be held remotely, and it is recorded. The recording will be posted to the Medfield TV YouTube channel. There is a single agenda item for the meeting, which is a review and discussion of the draft of the new elementary school proposal. The committee is required to submit this proposal in accordance with the school building committee bylaw passed at town meeting this spring. Submitting this proposal allows the Board of Selectmen to authorize the formation of a school building committee by the town moderator, the BOS, and the school committee. Should the school committee feel that the draft presented at this meeting and at the meeting on Monday, August 22nd, meets its approval, the document will most likely be submitted for consideration at the Selectmen's next meeting. And I just kind of want to make sure, I know that there are a lot of people interested here, so I kind of want to just go through what it is exactly we're doing today. As this is a working meeting, the committee will not take public input at this time, and we do not read or take note of comments submitted through the Q&A function. And that's simply a matter of fairness. Obviously, the issue of the new elementary project is of great importance to our town. And I hope that after we review the draft today, anyone who is watching and has insights or comments about the draft will submit them through the SCCHAIR School Committee Chair at email.medfield.net email address, or during the public comment period at Monday's meeting when we'll deliberate on this again. And please remember, this is just a kind of a expectation setting. Just remember that this proposal is a very early step in what will be a long process for the future school building committee, which will be composed primarily of community members. The committee's charge in this document is to discuss and define our highest priorities for the education of our youngest citizens. We hope that those who participate while watching now or later can appreciate that our intent is to approach this project with a neutral stance on all factors, except for the district's educational priorities for those citizens. So having said that, Dr. Marsden, do you want to kind of give us an overview and perhaps share your screen? I know that you guys received the draft. If you have questions, general ideas, why don't we just kind of start the discussion there?
Yeah, I think in talking with individual members of the Board of Selectmen, and then also talking with the town administrator, they weren't looking for a 1,000-page document like we submitted MSBA. It was more of kind of the intent and vision of what the school committee is looking for in either an elementary school project, whether it be new or a renovation or addition, and just really try to highlight what some of the important parts of the vision educationally that we think are important in the building project. So I think that's what the document that you folks have is what tries to accomplish. And certainly I think it's a good workshop model to go through it and see whether or not what you want to add, delete, and that type of thing. So I can put it up on the screen if you want, Madam Chair.
That would be great. Please do. Thanks.
All right. Make sure I don't mess this up. Can you see
if you do and I do, then we're both out of luck.
Can you see it?
No, not yet.
No, okay. We gotta share. Someone's gonna give me share screen access.
Do I? Okay.
Let me try it here.
I have who can okay, I think.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Bueno.
How about now?
No.
No?
Let me try that again. I have just turned on everything that a panelist could share.
Okay. How about now?
There
That's
you
not-
go.
It's not the right one.
Okay,
Not the right screen.
but we're getting somewhere.
We're getting there. All right. Reason number 550 why I like in-person meetings better.
They don't seem to work so well in late August.
This is telling me that it's a new elementary application draft, but for some reason it's not coming up with you guys.
Okay, let me see if I have it and I can.
How about now?
You got it.
Got it? Okay.
Mhm.
All right, here it is.
Okay, so do you guys want to go through it? I think looking at language, if you have any notes on language or on essentially the four kind of major priorities that are set here. Again, not specifying in any way, shape, or form where they should go or what they are, but what our actual priorities are for our kids. So everyone here knows why we need to submit this, right? That this is essentially the kickoff for the select board offering the charter or putting out a charter for the school building committee. So
So, and Jess, just so I understand that, so high level, as the SBC is formed, this represents our requirement. Seems to me to be a strong word, but high level, this is what we're saying. We want to build, a new or a renovated building that looks, that provides this. I just want, just so we're all on the same page. Is that the
Yes.
purpose of this document?
yes,
Yeah, we can't begin the selecting of SBC members without this proposal to the select board. So this essentially, once they see this and approve it, then we can begin forming the committee.
So is this then a little bit more of like a wish list? I guess my question when I read it is how binding is the verbiage in this document?
Given that this is a new process, I think it's, and that this is a document that has never really existed before in terms of what happens with a building project here, I would suggest that we remain as flexible as possible, but that we truly offer what we feel is the highest priorities for our children over time, now and also in the future. We don't want to build a building for 10 years, 15 years. We have a history of keeping buildings for a very long time. And essentially, I think that we have spoken pretty frequently, regardless of what phase we've been in of planning, that there is a need for us to be able to use our school and school space somewhat more flexibly, and to be able to use our staff in a way that is more collaborative and less having to kind of run across town, sharing staff, sharing a sense of an entire family instead of one kid for 2 years and then another kid for 2 years and another kid for 2 years. And that there are things that we cannot even imagine happening in the next 50 years. They just haven't occurred to us yet. But some of the things that we do know about is that climate change is real, it is happening, and that our buildings are not currently prepared for it. And we need to be able to have a building that is up to the fiscal as well as sustainability challenge of what 35, 40 years will come.
Right. Yes.
So
And I think I want us, and I want everyone to be able to I want to be able to, like, as we've talked about before, set the new SBC up for as much success and flexibility as possible,
Exactly.
and allow them to be able to take a holistic approach in regards to what we have available and what the needs of the future might be. And then, you know, from a school committee standpoint, making sure we have the forefront of the children and education in regards to what we're looking at. I feel like the things that I saw when I looked through that I had questions about. So in the first paragraph, where is the second paragraph? Yes, so first paragraph where it says, we submit this application for the construction of a new elementary school or the renovation addition to the existing Dale Street School. I was asking about the binding of this because I feel that sentence doesn't allow the option of doing additions to Memorial and Wheelock and kind of giving up the Dale Street School completely, which I know is a model that many of our citizens have talked about or wanted to understand better why we didn't pursue that. So I guess I was a little concerned about that sentence, excluding that as an option for the SBC to be able to evaluate. And then in regards to the campus setting, understanding that that's something that we want to have, I just want to make sure that when the new SBC is reading this, they're not thinking they only can be looking at campus setting, but just understanding that that's a priority of the school committee and trying to put that at the forefront of what they might be planning and looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. So, yeah, the way I read this, I think this is a great first pass, and I'm grateful that we have this to work with. I suppose I see this as what we need as a district, you know, and our wants. And for me personally, I see the campus setting as a pro, and that was the pro at Wheelock, but I see that more as a want versus a need. For me, I see the need are adequate space for 21st century learning and teaching, you know, and flexibility of space. And I don't think we mentioned, I'm wondering if it's relevant, I kind of think it is, in terms of mentioning all the projects that are going on in Medfield, that we are thinking about the population fluctuations and the need to be flexible with the projects that are going on in town. And of course, we need this to pass. So there are those. So those are, you know, I kind of visualize this as maybe a chart or a box or a table, you know, what our needs are specifically and what our wants are. And I see campus setting as a want. And so I hope I am understood, and I would love to hear feedback on what I just said. What do you guys think?
I honestly see a campus setting as a necessity. And I'll tell you why. Because I believe that probably within the next 10 to 15 years, we are going to have mandates for early childhood education, that it will no longer be an option, and we will be serving our pre-K as well as our kindergarten in a full day capacity. And to be able to have the flexibility of a campus at this point that also allows us to continue to have continuity across grade levels. I mean, one of the things that people have consistently cited is that we need to have continuity across grade levels, and that we also know that Medfield has historically had these, and we're in the middle of one now, these cyclic grade bumps, where all of a sudden we get one very large grade that ends up kind of straining our space enormously. Right now at Memorial, we are cutting down revenue and educationally appropriate services simply because we do not have the room to have, you know, the children who are entering in first grade, and, you know, or to the classroom sizes that we would like. And we know that that happens over time. We also know that things shrink at times. to be able to have the flexibility of being able to have continuity with grades, to have that back and forth kind of collegial kind of work and communication, to know families as over time as a group and not just one kid coming through with a parent, you know, that you really start to see a cohesion there. You're building community, but to be able to also just have that sense of being able to, you know, should, you know.
So maybe
Got it
I'm
this way.
stuck
This is what I'm
on-
thinking about. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, maybe I'm getting stuck on how campus setting is a trigger for some people in the community. And so maybe the way I'm thinking about it is that I agree with every point you just said, Jess. And, you know, that was the reason why we were, you know, hoping for, you know, the campus at Wheelock. But that also is under the flexibility.
But that's right. But that's also the right.
You know, to be flexible
So we
with
can
our space, it's not maybe not. So maybe we are, as Marcucci suggested, you know, consolidate a couple of schools and, you know, maybe
Right.
we'll be smarter that way. So again, maybe I am getting stuck on campus setting, and I would ideally like this, all those points you just made, you know, transition, etc., knowing the blah, 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 is really under that flexibility piece, the flexibility not only of population, but flexibility of buildings. So
Is anyone else getting all that feedback?
I am.
Yeah.
And that echo? Okay. It's loud.
I'm not. I don't know if I need to be muted because I'm.
Are you using your
Oh.
phone for audio?
Yes, I am actually. So it's surprising that it's. I mean, I'll mute and see if there's a difference. Jeff, were you able to hear, or was everybody able to hear what Anime said? Or
I did, yes.
So Michelle and Tim and Jeffy, what do you think about my concerns about using the term campus setting as an absolute?
Well, so I'm going to circle around because I think it's interesting that the first paragraph references that it's in the best interest of our community to examine the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools. Like you're like, why that should that be linked to a campus setting in some way? Because if you start looking at the structure, like I'm just or I guess I would ask, is there a reason that that's in the first paragraph but not in the bullets, so to speak?
I'm sorry.
Only in that this is a draft. You know, so it's about wordsmithing as well.
Yeah, no, I just because and that's I didn't. Thank you for building it as a baseline, but so anyway, I'm at least saying like I like the fact that that's right there in the first paragraph, right? That
Okay.
you know, but then it begins to open up like, okay, so if we're suggesting examine the current grade structure, I mean, I'm assuming that is the configuration. I just want to make sure.
Okay, well, in the first bullet point, it says, in a reevaluation of the initial plan, as well as factors raised since that plan was proposed, the committee and administration have identified a campus setting of at least 2 elementary schools as the highest priority of a new elementary school or renovation addition project. The campus minimizes transitions for our students and increases opportunities for staff and service collaboration. If that is something that we believe is a true statement, and if you want to get rid of the word campus, that's fine. I truly think that this is neutral. You know, like this is really neutral. Like people can get, angry about the idea of a campus, but changing the language doesn't make it any less,
Well, no,
you know,
because
what we're asking for.
language does matter, right? It,
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm
matter,
just saying that-
language matters, you know, so I just, and in the spirit of this being an open not so much, yes, an open process, but really for the new SBC to explore all the avenues, that's really where we're heading.
Okay,
So, but just
are
one
we
second,
saying
Jess,
that-
I want to clarify.
ahead.
The very first paragraph, the last
Yes,
sentence
the
of the
very
very
first
first paragraph. Yeah, as opposed to the first bullet. That you know, to me,
Right.
you may, like, I think are you saying part of the task of the SBC is to evaluate the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools. Like should that be like, it's like, hey, look, those two, we should, you know, maybe that's what we're saying. Evaluate the structure of the schools and consider a campus model where appropriate, you know, gain economies of scale, right? Reduce transition, like, you know, like, but I'm
I
just
would
wondering if we
hesitate.
should be linking those two.
I would hesitate to place the ultimate educational long-term priorities, you know, specifically educational long-term priorities of the district in the hands of a committee that is also focused on building, right? Like that, their job is to, our job as a collaborative group, right, is to build a building that meets the needs of our town. I think that those things will be teased out. As for right now, these are points that people have asked for, looked for. Allow us to be as flexible as possible in providing the best education that we can. But I do think that there is, I think philosophically, it's important for the school district itself, for Dr. Marsden and the professionals that he works with and the people that he has, you know, like all of the input that we've had over the last 5 years, to not just simply say that you know, you guys decide what it is that the educational vision of the town is going to be forever, right? Like, we need to be able to put, and I think this is also what Gus has asked for, the select board have asked for. Tell us what you think is the highest priorities. What are your priorities? And whether we want to say campus setting or a unified setting or a chunk of grass with 2 buildings on it, I don't care. But I think that as a community, we have identified that there's really a need in terms of staffing, in terms of transitions for our kids, in terms of making sure that we have, you know, a group of professionals who are able to have those important connections with each other, and the families that are able to have the important connections with a specific site over time, along with dealing with this kind of pig in a poke problem we get, where we end up having big grades that end up affecting, in this kind of chain space throughout time, you know? So I think that there is nothing wrong with us saying it's really important. These things are important. And that is the vision of the school committee and of Dr.
Yeah.
Marsden.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I personally, I like the first 2 paragraphs. Those are awesome. I don't know if anyone else has any feedback, I think, on the first 2 paragraphs. I think, Michelle, you had a point.
I have another question. I guess this is a little bit on what Tim just said. And as we're talking about examining the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools, in the scope of this project, who are we asking to do that? Is that the school committee that's responsible for that? Is that, I mean, if we're saying
I
that we
think that's
don't
the
want,
school committee.
okay, so that's something that in conjunction with this project, we're going to be taking a look at that as well and sharing that information with the new SBC.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dr. Marsden, do you
Yeah,
want to speak to
that-
that? Because I know that
agreed.
we've had conversations about this. Jeff, do you want to speak to that before we kind of get any further in there in terms of ascribing responsibility about
Yeah, I mean, I think that would
who
be,
gets to make these decisions?
yeah, I think if we're looking at the grade configuration of the elementary schools going forward, I think that falls under your purview. I wouldn't want you, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that you give that responsibility to the SBC. I mean, I think part of the conversation is maybe you add a line in that first paragraph that says something like, I know for Michelle's concerns about a new elementary school addition renovation to existing Dale Street School, or any other project the SBC would like to examine, or something, something in there where it gives flexibility to look at that. Because I know that's something that I've heard it too, Michelle. People that want to do two projects at the same time, and upgrade Wheelock and then do some work to Memorial and then abandon Dale Street altogether. Like, I've heard that too. So, I mean, if that's something that the SBC wants to look at, then that's their purview to do that. But I would never recommend to any school committee to give the responsibility of assigning grade configurations in your school district to an SBC.
Right.
Because
and I
they
guess
serve
that's
two
what I'm
different
trying-
purposes.
Right.
There's
And
project-based.
paragraphs. I feel like maybe we should even say, like, as a component of the project, in conjunction or in partnership with the school committee, the new SBC or something, we'll give a recommendation there on what we feel it would be the best use of things, and see if they can take that information and go with it. And then in that same space, like, I don't know how much it costs to, abandon Dale altogether and do an addition at Wheelock and do an addition at Memorial, but I feel like that's something that we want to be able to give the option for the new SBC to decide if that's something that makes sense, right? I want to make sure we're setting them up for success.
So
Does anyone have thoughts about
what if
that?
it just said, I agree. What if it just said, it is in the best interest of our community and our students for the school committee and administration to examine the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools? Because it just clarifies that we're not asking the SBC to examine and make a recommendation current structure. Like, I think that's what I just heard. That at least clarifies why we put it in there. And I think we're saying, yeah, we need to continue to look into that. We're not prepared today, but we want to get this thing. We can't say, hey, it should be X or Y, because there's so many unknowns. That's where the flexibility comes in.
Yeah.
But
Well, I also think that we
to me,
say,
it's vague, and it says, if I was on the SBC, I might say, are you suggesting that's our responsibility?
Right, that's how I read it too. Who's doing this?
Okay.
Who's in charge?
okay. Do you want
So just-
Dr. Marsden to wordsmith that in a way, or do you want to do that right now? I mean, we will have another look at this, or
You could do it now
Sure,
because
frankly.
Andrea's on the line, so she could take the notes down. And
Hey, Andrea, welcome back from the beach.
perfect.
All right, so so then let's just say, as a component of the project, let's look at that second sentence. We strongly believe, let's get rid of will. We strongly believe that it is in the best interest of our community and our students to
Yeah, for the school
the
committee.
school
Yeah.
committee, for the school committee to examine the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools.
And then the only unknown to me, let's be honest, that we would say, hey, Dr. Marsden and team, we need your support. So should it be for the school committee and administration?
Yeah, I mean, it ends up kind of being
Me anyway.
us. Yeah, it's you.
Yeah, it's going to be
anyway.
the same. It's gonna
I'll be a
the
part
same
of that.
place. Yeah, the first thing, I mean, no question about it. So it's just, to me, that doesn't matter. But for the school committee, give the clarity that's a big part of this process.
Okay.
We're not necessarily turning that over to the SBC.
Okay.
Sorry, just, I want to go back to what Jeff said earlier in terms of in partnership, because the SBC is going to look at this. So I'm just circling back to that point. Yes, it is, the school committee will examine the current grade structure, but so will the SBC.
Well, the SBC will look as to how to build that, whether it's possible to build that, what sort of facility will make that possible, if it is possible. But it really is, I think, in my opinion, up to us to make that recommendation and say that this is how we see this going in the near future. And in the far future, it's possible that we will need to shrink to 2 buildings or whatever. So putting together a plan over time about how this building could function.
Just
Right.
just to that point, NMA, what if you did interest of our community and our students with the school committee and the SBC to examine the current grade structure of our 3 elementary schools?
Because I do think it
So you're
is a
working
partnership. So yeah.
That's good. All right, and then let's address Michelle's concern about the existing Dale Street School. The Medfield School Committee submits this application for the construction of a new elementary school or the renovation addition to either the existing Dale Street School or other elementary schools in town as identified by the SBC. I don't know.
Tim, that is you. It keeps popping up as you talking. So that is you creating that feedback.
And we want feedback, just not that.
Yeah, just it keeps coming back as you. It says talking Tim Knight keeps coming up.
Yeah, let me get my headset on too. That might be that reason why.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so does that make sense that, or how can we wordsmith that a little bit better?
Michelle, sorry, can you repeat what you said? Because I thought that was at the beginning. I don't know if you have your notes or something or other, because I thought that was, I thought you stated it well.
What I said?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I was just speaking freely.
Oh,
I have a note comment here, just like the sentence itself. I mean, it doesn't allow for an addition. The way I read it is it doesn't allow for, letting Dale Street go and doing additions to Wheelock and Memorial. So, yeah.
Which then makes that more important for us to be doing this completely in conjunction with the SBC, because they have to see what's possible. I mean, our 2 additions is so much more prohibitively expensive than what could potentially, than a new elementary school that would be 3 grades or wherever it might be.
So
yeah.
new elementary school renovation addition or what's the word we're looking for? Reconfiguration or what other words?
Okay, submits the application. I'm gonna mute.
Would we use reconfigurations of elementary schools?
Well, what if we simply said construction of a new elementary school or the renovation or addition to one of the towns or to the town's existing elementary school spaces?
I think we definitely have to mention Dale Street School.
Yes.
What about and or other existing, leave the sentence as is, then just close it with, instead of Dale Street School and or other existing schools, or, and or Wheelock and Memorial.
let's stick it in there, and if we hate it, we hate it. And then we,
Yeah, I mean, I think that
I don't want to
it
get
might
stuck
be,
here
hey,
completely.
in order for this to all work, you need to add some modular, like I'm oversimplifying, but in order for this to all work, we may need to do a little bit of additional work somewhere else. Like that, like this is different than an MSBA request. And I know that opens up a whole can of worms if you did, you know, depending on what happens on that. But it's just saying within the SBC, it could be in scope. I think that's what we're saying, right? Michelle, that's the concern that you're raising.
Yeah.
It's valid, you know, it's a good, it came up a bunch. You know, what are we doing with the other schools?
Mhm. So let's put that in there as a placeholder, knowing that that's the idea. We can wordsmith it later, but let's get, if we can, if everybody agrees to kind of move on, let's make sure that we're looking at how we want to present the specific priorities that we have. Now, these are priorities that we have, that have been taken from the initial educational plan, as well as the plan that we submitted with the SOI. None of these priorities are new. Are there ways that they could be presented that you feel would be more clear, or you know, Anna Mae talks about how we talk about reconfiguration of the space in reevaluating the initial plan. Do we want to take out campus setting and simply say, have identified potentially reconfiguring grades of at least 2 elementary schools? I mean, I also want to say that, you know, that these are the educational priorities that Dr. Marston and we and his staff have identified over time. So I don't want to kind of tamp down an important priority because we're worried that it won't fly, right? If it's a priority, it's a priority. We can always realize that we have to make, you know, compromises and concessions. But if it's a priority and we feel as this is something people really want, then we need to figure out a way to say that without kind of, you know, not having the I guess in some ways the bravery to sustain the priority simply on the basis of what we think might pass. I mean, you will always get less than what you ask for, right? So why not ask for what you really need? And
that's not what I'm saying.
I know, but I'm saying that I want to make sure that we talk about these as priorities, not as like, it'd be nice, you know, like.
Well, what if, could we say campus setting or reconfiguration? Because I feel like, again, if we're going back to, if we want to give everyone all of the options, right? And we decide we're letting Dale Street go and we're going to add on to Memorial and add on to Wheelock, that's not going to give you a campus setting, but that does actually minimize the transitions and also adds additional collaboration. So maybe I also agree that unfortunately campus setting may have become a triggering word for some people, but I think all of the things that we want out of the campus setting from an education standpoint makes sense. So either unified setting and or reconfiguration or something like that, I think could be helpful in that space for that first bullet point. I also wonder if that bullet point should be second and future flexibility should be the first bullet point.
I would suggest that.
Dr. Marston, how do you feel about that? Does that seem appropriate to you?
Well, I wonder if you put something like a plan or whatever identified that highest priority of a new elementary school or a renovation addition project that minimizes transitions for students and increases opportunities. So you're not saying it's a campus setting, but to your point, Michelle, what you're talking about is making those additions on the 2 buildings still does that, right? It still minimizes transitions and increases opportunities for staff and service collaboration, which is what we're looking for. So if it's not on the campus and it looks like that, then that's fine, because the ultimate goal is to minimize transitions for kids and to increase the opportunities for collaboration. So if we want to take out campus, we could word it that way somewhere.
I think that works better too, because again, we're giving that flexibility around what we allowing the SBC to look at the options. Because my other personal concern with campus setting, when I read it, it makes me think you can't look at all the land available because you have to be partnering with a school. Do you know what I mean? So I guess I
Right.
just feel like if we want to give them all the options and then allow them to decide what works and what doesn't, I want to make sure we're not handcuffing them in any way, I guess.
It's a little like when parents write letters for teachers and you can't say the teacher's name, but you write everything about that. It only can be that one teacher. That's what this is reminding me of a little bit, but that's okay.
Well, I like the words you use though, Jeff. I tried to capture it, minimize transitions, and then what was the second? Because I thought you captured more of the staff, shared staffing models where
Yeah, increase the opportunities for collaboration,
And shared staff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good positive. Then it reflects the needs of the school committee administration. You're saying, yeah, we want this. This is a priority. I want to just circle back for a minute because I've been taking a couple notes, but like Anna Mae, you said needs and wants. I think of it as like needs. Space well suited for modern learning. I like the flexibility, maybe even the concept of future proof. As much as you can. I mean, just flexibility to accommodate future and evolving needs. Like, there is a concept to me that is needs. Support from, I don't know if the word is 2/3 majority, but support from the voters in the community. If we go like that, I think that to me needs to be stated early. Like otherwise, we're going to spend 3 years. We don't get 2/3. That is one of the key priorities. If you're part of the SBC, is that whatever we propose, get support. I don't know. Like I see that you have community resource. I think that's great. Should be. But like kind of alignment from the community or something like that, that should be clear in there. And then if I were to just finish, like the needs, I also think of like confidence in the administration that it supports the educational plan.
I guess to some extent, I feel like, okay, we say what we need for kids. And it is very important for this to pass. It is very important for this to have community support. But if we are constantly worrying in this first initial document that that we are not going to be able to give our kids this, or that we're not stating our educational priorities clearly, and essentially kind of bringing in something that is extraordinarily important, but is, I don't know, 2 points down the lane in some ways. Like, this is truly a document that will have many, many changes to it. What we're saying right now is, like, you don't put together a mission statement that says, and then we hope everybody agrees with this, right? Like, when you put together a mission statement about a project, you say what you need, what you hold most important in the educational thing. So I think that it's important to put something in there, as I think about it. Let me think about this outside, about community support, but that community support has to be said and put in there as how important it is for our children to have this school, and that the school committee feels that the SBC needs the highest level of communication support in order to make the vision for what the best thing for our children's education is happen, that we are committed to that, but that is not really, that's not a proposal about a school. That's a proposal about a practice. You know what I
We
mean?
can throw that, yeah, we can throw that sentence in like something like you just said though, in the very end, not the very last line, but we could say something about something like to Tim's sentiment as like a like quasi closing sentence, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Perhaps down where we were talking about that the school committee is anxiously awaits or is
Yes,
anxious to
yeah, I
begin.
think it could be in there for sure.
Does that make
Yeah, I think,
sense to everyone?
Yep.
Yeah, like, and Jess, I agree. Like, in some ways, listening to you, you would think that the SBC, that becomes something they add no matter what. That becomes a
Mhm.
huge priority. But I do like the idea of capturing, we would hope, that we as, we think it is a priority, to get community and the voters to support and approve it and do it in an expeditious fashion, right? Like, I'd rather it be
Right.
2 years.
So it's not
8
part of
years.
the educational mission statement so much as it is part of the commitment statement to the project. Does that sound realistic? I mean, does that sound kind of the way we're looking at that?
I'd say so.
I think just in the spirit of being truly neutral and offering a neutral plan, we also have to be as strongly invested in our children's education as we ever have been. And in this document, this is the only time that we will ever get to say, this is what we would really, really like to see for our kids. Because after this, sausage gets made for very good reasons. There's economics, there's space, there's time, there's all these things that happen. This may be the only pure educational document that we ever get to put in place. And so I think it's important that we remain kind of intent on what we feel is important for our kids. And I think that we're all saying those things, but I just want to make sure that we're holding on to that. And then maybe that's just my role in this particular meeting right now, is to be kind of hyper focused on that. But as we do make changes, I think it's just it's really important just to be able to say that this is what we want, that this is a want and a need, especially in education around here. I don't think that we spend a lot of time asking for pie in the sky. The wants and the needs are essentially the same. Does anybody have any thoughts to that? You can feel free to contradict me. I'd be fine with that. It's just I guess that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. How do we make this a pure document at this point? So we are largely changing the first bullet point. Are we dropping it and putting it into the future flexibility paragraph?
I liked Michelle's suggestion of,
Okay. I'm losing track of like exactly how those suggestions
yeah,
work,
so two suggestions that I really liked is pushing up flexibility as number one. And
okay, great, thanks.
Two, as either campus setting or reconfiguration. Again, we want to make this broad. So
okay,
SBC has the flexibility to take a look at this, yet maintaining that educational integrity that we're looking for. So just finding that balance.
Okay, and then now in the first paragraph, what are your thoughts about the language there and how we need to change it or not change it?
Sorry, can you read the first sentence?
I've been taking notes. Like, I copied it and I've been playing with it, like putting some of the words in. If we are going to do it, shouldn't we just do it where we can see it?
Yeah, well, Jeff is, this is the PDF that we have off of here. So, I mean, Tim, if you have yours, you can share and Jeff can take his.
I can stop share.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, but like, I think we were okay. That first paragraph, I think it was okay.
Yeah.
With some
You know, you just said for the school committee to examine. I think we added, we suggested
Yeah, we had all that.
Yeah, we got all
Yeah,
that.
and Jeff, or do that, you know, if you want to bring up whoever wrote this document, you know, just bring it up there. I think that might be good. Might be better. Like a Google Doc.
That would be you,
Yeah.
Jeff, if you have those.
I mean, what I'll say is just the one thing I think that is challenging. I think they're telling us we must submit this in order for them to, you know, in order for the collective body to choose an SBC. But it's hard to put. This is a nuanced set of requirements, and it does require teaming, working together.
It does require
right?
what?
Teaming, working together. Like, you know, some of
Teaming?
these conversations where teaming, working as a team.
Okay,
Maybe
you.
I'm using the wrong word.
No, you
Teamwork.
just keep cutting out on the
fault.
consonant.
The teamwork, my fault. Right, and I think that's the tricky part here is, you know, how specific do we want to be with this?
Again, this is a document that's never been written before, not required before. And I think that, you know, we have, as representatives of the town and of our children's education, we have the right to say what we as a body feel is important. No part of saying what we think is important then belies that we don't think that the rest of the priorities that the SBC will bring are unimportant, but I think that it is our job to make sure that, you know, that we provide the best educational model that we possibly can. And that this is, you know, teamwork will come, but no one has asked, kind of look at it this way. No one has asked Scott McDermott, who will appoint, you know, 4 of the next members to come up with his mission statement about the educational priorities. And the SBC hasn't said, and we have a document about our educational priorities. Our expertise has been asked for in order to understand what the needs are for a new school building or for a new school configuration for our education. And in fact, the selectmen have asked us to expand beyond simply a building. They're saying, tell us what you would like to see. If there is something here that is a big vision, let us know that. And I know that I've heard Gus say that in open meeting. If there's a big vision, let us know. I have taken Gus at his word on that. And I think that we all should. If we think that a big vision is that we would like to see a minimization of transitions for our children in some way, be that a building project at 2 separate schools or in one place on a certain kind of acreage or whatever, okay. But we feel like this is important, that these are the things we have seen over time and have heard from our community that they would like to see change. So, I mean, does that make sense in terms of what our role is here?
Sorry, I have one more. So Tim, when you're talking about teamwork, are you talking about collaborating with the future SBC? Like, who are you looking at teaming with?
Yes.
Because I think the thing to keep in mind there too,
maybe that. Go ahead.
We will have 2 school committee members on the SBC, right? So we're here right now, you know, focusing on this one kind of very specific part of the project, but we will still have a lot of visibility into what's going on and be able to brokerage that partnership between the new SBC and the school committee to make sure that the vision is coming and going in the right direction. And then, you know, the 2/3 piece is something that obviously is going to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. And I think it's maybe somehow having that discussion in regards to like what that looks like when the SBC is formed, but maybe a little bit, but like what they're looking at to make sure that it does pass, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think we are gradually, like this quote last paragraph or closing, maybe it is like, support from the voters. These are things we know anyway, but you know, we think it's important, you know, as we go navigate this, working partnership.
Tim, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Balance the interest of what we want and gain.
Tim, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Can't hear.
I just think there's the trap, you know, the glass half full is we're going to do that. We know we will anyways. Glass half empty is somebody says, hey, you didn't put that in the requirements document at the beginning. Why are you asking for this?
Hey, Tim, I'm sorry. I know you said something incredibly brilliant.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Tim, we can't hear you. I just unmuted him so I can unmute him. So he knows that we can't hear him. Tim, we can't hear you. Oh, what was that? Tim?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
No, it's all right. We just
We
know
can hear
you were
you now.
saying such brilliant things, but we couldn't hear you. So, which is why I flashed mute on and off so that we could get your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So I think let's go back and make sure that we all understand what you were talking about in terms of Michelle brought up, you know, that we're going to have people on the school building committee. You're talking about teaming. Can you tell us a little bit about your point that you made in terms of what it was that you would like to see within this document right now that you feel is missing in terms of that
and I'll
teaming?
try to be more concise. We talked about maybe a third or a last paragraph that reinforces things like support from the voters. Maybe we also just reinforce the importance of teamwork or partnership between the SBC and the school committee, you know, and the town, really the SBC, the school committee, and the town, and you know, moving this to a positive place. Like I just think of like not traps, but just some of the, like previously when things came up around the community or the community center or the, you know, right around Dale. Well, that's a separate project, and like that was very difficult for us to navigate that. And some people, and that's where I'm saying the concept of partnership is important with the town, the SBC, and the school committee. I think that's the only thing I'm saying.
like that sentiment is like a closing few lines in terms of the spirit that we're coming from in terms of working collaboratively, committed. You know, I like that language in terms of expressing the spirit.
It also makes it capture like support from the vote. Like it does. That's the concept that we're trying to add. So Jess, I don't know. I mean, does that help? Like I do recognize 2 members of the school committee would be on the SBC. That's good. I'm happy to hear that. But it's still, you know, it doesn't. That's like I think it's good for that. You know, to reinforce that as a concluding paragraph.
Sure. Yeah, as long as it is not specifically within the educational goals, and that is about our intent in terms of process, and that we're assuming positive intent, because I think that one of the most important things is to not is to truly shake off what, at least in my mind, to truly shake off whatever happened, in the original vote. That I'm coming here with kind of a clean slate in a lot of ways. And that I do assume positive intent of all parties, that, there's a reason people put a lot of time into this. And, if that's how we're going to make that statement in terms of partnership, I'm fine with it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that we were really keeping the educational part separate from, like that essentially we're offering a gift, and that this is really important to us. This is a scaffold for where we would really like to see this go. Anything from there, we assume the positive intent that you will work with us to make that happen. And if it can't, we will all understand why. And we will all work towards a better solution, or a solution that is workable for everyone. Like that's kind of, as long as we're holding those two things separate, that we're not saying that an educational goal is that we'll have teamwork, right? Like that's kind of my worry that, but yeah, I mean, if that's the last paragraph, fine. I don't have any problem with it. I just wanted to make sure that I was clearly hearing what you were saying too, because I know that you had good stuff to say about that, so.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry for the audio challenges.
Yeah. Happens. Certainly not the worst one we've ever had. Okay, so where else do we need to go on this document? Let me minimize this part of my screen so I can look.
What do folks think about Michelle's suggestion of moving future flexibility as the top bullet, so to speak?
Oh, perfectly good with that.
Yeah.
You cool with
Jeff, you
that?
good with that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Great.
And in terms of the future flexibility section, is it necessary to point out, in light of the projects and future projects in town, the population fluctuations and whatnot, or is that implied?
I think that not everybody knows, that these are things that we struggle with right now. And that this is actually, in the 5.5 years that I've been on the committee, this is probably the third time that we've had this struggle. It seems to be happening more frequently. And while it gets dispersed once we are out of Memorial School to some extent, we really are making sacrifices at the youngest, at the youngest grades, which is, also such a foundational time. I think it's really important that the community understands that this space issue and the configuration issue is one that is happening now, as well as, and it has very little to do with the group number that happens to be in the district, but is so very specifically class focused. And that if we can have that flexibility, I just feel like I'm not going to fight for it. I'm not going to, it's not like a verbal cage match to have it in there, but I do think it's important.
So Anna Mae, you talking about the upcoming construction?
Correct, and all the various projects in town
yeah.
and future projects, that we're being mindful of population fluctuations.
Okay.
And and I think that's part of the flexibility. I think that was part of one of our selling points for the last project. And just in terms of an absolute need that for our students and our teachers, again, that adequate learning space for, the space itself, the physical space,
right.
Adequate space for 21st century learning and teaching. So I can get in there.
Okay.
Which includes, I think that's important, because we're going to also, we're talking about students and numbers, but we are also talking about how we have enough space to have not simply, 22 students in a classroom, but students that get pulled out, enough room for music, enough room for languages, and enough room for the science and technology initiatives that we've had, enough room for, simply our library media arts.
Yes, so I think that explicit space component needs to be in here.
I second that, again,
Okay.
because if we're talking again from what we want and like educationally speaking and from the children, I second, I'm just going to say I second that. I think that's important for that to be in this document.
I think it's the second sentence, must have the space and resources to accommodate. It might just be wordsmithing, but bringing that right up. Because at the end of the day, even when I was playing with like quote needs and wants, space, number one on needs, like it's just crystal clear. Space and then flexibility were two separate topics, really.
Well, let me throw that out to the rest of the group. Do we think space and flexibility are two different things, or?
I do, actually. It is.
Okay.
Don't you think?
All right. Yeah. No, I'm thinking about it now. I'm just noodling it through in my head. How do you want to?
Yeah, I think
where do you want to put that?
I think it's a different bullet point where we kind of list all the things we just said. We want a space that enables 21st century learning, and that includes, but is not limited to, some of the things we just said in regards to what we want that space to be able to do.
Okay. So,
So maybe that's the first bullet.
Yeah, maybe that is.
Adequate space for 21st century learning and teaching and to support or whatever, that is self-explanatory right in itself. It
is, but I think it is worth writing that, because Michelle, you said it. It goes beyond quote 22 students in a classroom. It's like, well, how are you handling some of the special ed when students, there's all kinds of other ways that are taught other than how many students per classroom, which is captured in the concept of modern learning.
Jeff, do you have thoughts or considerations around that, or how you would like the language to go in there?
I like the idea of having space as a separate bullet point. I think
Okay.
that's a really good idea.
All right. Okay.
Like I'm almost wondering. Go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just you answered my question, because I was about to say anything else on that particular point, and clearly there is. So hit it.
No, I'm saying in there because I think I think if you have space, flexibility, that revised, not using the term campus model, but minimize transitions and accommodate, whether it's shared staff or however you would that. And then the next two you have, I think, are really important as well: community resource and sustainability. But in some ways, is that what we're thinking? Like it's 5 bullets. Like the concept of teamwork and getting the support from the voters, you captured that in the last paragraph that hasn't been written. I think is appropriate, anyways. Is that what? If we were to say, like in the least amount of words, space, flexibility, or transitions and shared staff, community resource and sustainability, are we missing anything?
No, I don't think so.
I think that.
And Jess, I slowed us down so many times as I was trying to maybe help speed us up.
All right. So do we feel as we look at this, that there is anything else that we would need to specifically add, or would we be comfortable with a draft brought to the meeting on Monday that would have these changes in place? That we would obviously be able to look at as part of the packet, and then review again before we were, and take public input before we were to submit this to the select board. Anyone?
I don't have anything else.
All right.
Ammo, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, and Tim?
Yes, this is very productive.
Okay, good. Jeff, do you have thoughts, things that you might want to either add in, or you have concerns about, or you could obviously bring
No.
them to Monday's meeting as well?
Yeah, no, looks good. I mean, I think that the Board of Selectmen are expecting to take this up at their August 30th meeting. So if
Right.
we're able to get some closure on that on Monday night, then we can forward it over to them and take it from
Right.
there.
Right.
Good.
I mean, I would expect that would happen on Monday, unless there is really significant, as we look at this over the next couple of days, there's significant feelings we have about the direction of it. But I think it's worthy of taking another pretty good look at it on Monday, and hearing from the community, and then if it doesn't fly, well, hey, there's always a remote meeting.
Are we going
Another
to
one.
post this on the website as a draft, as a first draft kind of a things, or no? You just said feedback from the community, so they'll have, I didn't know if this was posted anywhere.
No, I was thinking that they would be able to see this
Okay.
here and part of the discussion, and then
Cool.
and then we'll take public comment, kind of once we talk about the draft in the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
And I've asked for a comment, and I would ask again for comment to the school committee email address as well, which we always look at, so, and sometimes gives us a little bit more time to work on something. So one thing I might like to see in terms of format is instead of in a memo format, if we could submit this, because I think it's worthy of being submitted, not so much as a memo, but as a direct letter with our names, the Medfield School Committee and Dr. Marston's signature.
Also,
instead of,
It's the select board now, right? That officially became.
not yet, not
Not-
until
okay.
May, whatever.
Oh, right. We have to ballot vote it.
2022.
You're right. Ballot vote. I forgot. Okay.
All
Sorry.
right.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for the correction. I was
I keep reading it and I'm like, select board.
Well, you know me, I
Voted
wouldn't
this.
use it if I didn't have to, but I have to. And now that
Yes.
I know that there's an end point, I'll stop poking about it.
No.
Okay.
I have
So,
a process question. We can keep talking about this. I have a very quick process question. So I saw in the Hometown Weekly today that the town moderator, Scott McDermott, wrote a letter to the editor, and he's hosting some open, like, kind of forum things, which I thought looked really interesting. I like the community engagement piece of it, but he's looking at it. He stated that he's going to be making appointments for the new SBC. And again, I didn't know if Anna Mae, if you had any additional feedback on, like, or if we know what the process is going to look like, or if we're not there yet. I was just curious if there was an update on how the new SBC and the appointments might work, even on a high level, if we knew anything.
Yes, I think, this idea I had of, let's all work together. I think people really want to really take care of their domain, so to speak.
Okay.
And, I think Scott, we're under, because we are the school committee, open meeting laws, that we have to discuss every candidate that submits. So folks thought that it was probably better to stay within their unit, so to speak.
Okay.
I think that we should probably,
So if we knew people who wanted to be involved and don't have specific education criteria, we would tell them maybe they should attend Scott's things or reach out to
Well,
Scott.
I'm
to be on
hoping
SBC.
this is going to be an agenda item on Monday,
Okay.
so we can talk about the
Okay.
SBC in relation to school committee and how we want to proceed, and do Google for and how we kind of roll
so
that out.
Anna Mae, do you need us to make an amendment to the agenda that's
I'm
been
sorry, I
put out?
haven't
Because I
seen-
didn't put anything on about the SBC specifically.
Oh yes, if we could please make an amendment. I'm sorry, I didn't see the agenda. But yes, I'm hoping we could please have a line item there to discuss process of
Okay.
forming the
I
school.
think that's reasonable. I'm not looking at it right now, but I think that's something we can do. A lot of the business items we have are relatively quick. So between this and, we can have a process discussion. I think that's appropriate. Okay, cool. All right.
I won't be there on Monday, so if you could just not vote on process, that'd be great.
Sorry. I think that trust us. You just have
I
to
do
us.
trust
Plus, if
you
you
guys. I
have
just
input.
Feel like, yes, I'll listen and tell you what I think.
Well, also, if you have, I don't think that we would be voting on anything actually at
Okay.
that point in terms of process. Anna Mae, do you see that level of urgency or?
Well, I would love to get something out. I mean, I think I would love to get something ready for once the selectmen approve our application, then I would like to discuss how we move forward and are ready.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe Michelle, if you have thoughts about that, why don't you forward them to me and I can bring them to the committee? Would that be helpful?
Sure. Yeah, I could do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so do we feel as though we have accomplished what we need to in this meeting, in this workshop right now? We okay to adjourn? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna make that an executive call. Okay, so our next meeting is on Monday, August 22nd, 2022, with an executive session at 6:15, I think. Did we schedule it for 6:15? Yeah.
Yes.
And then a regular meeting at 7 p.m. That is the meeting in which we switch roles, by the way. So we'll see what happens on Monday with that, but just be aware that that's that's the policy for that first meeting. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Anna Mae, and a second?
Second.
Michelle Kirkby, all in favor? Aye.
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 And thanks, Dim. And the motion passes. The meeting is adjourned at 6:21 p.m. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're all on various vacations and everything else. Thank you so much. Take care.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.